Hello. I'd like first to introduce myself briefly. I'm Dirksen Bauman, Professor of Deaf Studies, and I'm here today to share some considerations based on 30 years of the Deaf Studies program having been created in 1994 here. That's quite a time span in which I've seen a great many contributions, and it's been an honor to be part of that department since 1999, a very long time. I joined the Deaf Studies department and in sort of a strange way, because first of all, we have to consider that I'm not deaf. And so I had to consider what my role might be within Deaf Studies, but I was in fact invited into the program to consider not just deaf lived experience, but also the inverse, to interrogate the hearing experience, the hearing studies aspect of this. This requires a dual lens, and that's what I've been engaged in for this entire career now. And I'm taking this moment as an opportunity to reflect on the great changes that have taken place over these 30 years, and changes in technology, in the political landscape, and at the same time also look at what has been present throughout that whole period. And this omnipresence is something that speaks to the root causes of problems that we see throughout the world and throughout time. But when we look back to its root causes, have always been the same. And one of those things that I've been interrogating is specifically that root cause and unearthing it. That root cause is phonocentrism. Now, let's talk about what that is. It's the idea of the supremacy of speech. This is rooted in the idea that speech reigns supreme over all forms of communication, all ways of expressing oneself, through writing, through signing, through visual representation. Speech reigns supreme, and all other things are subservient to that. That concept has not been only my contribution. That has also come from a French philosopher, Jacques Derrida, who has spoken at length about this concept, and that absolutely has been applicable to the field of deaf studies. Derrida speaks very interestingly about the notion of voice. Voice carrying presence. Voice has a presence, and the immediate reflection of the sound one utters, one hears in that moment. It is proof of one's existence in that moment. And in fact, that voice carries identity with it, that embeds with it notions of gender, country of origin, education level, race, ethnicity, and a great many other characteristics. Many aspects of identity are carried through in this single notion of voice. And so if a person is without a voice for any reason, then hearing people often fail to see identity present within their expression. They have to search for it. And this has been the case for many a year. And parents generally, when their child is diagnosed as deaf, their wants and dreams for their child have changed. They want their children to share the identities that they have. And so there has for a very long time been the aspiration to make their deaf children be as close to hearing as possible. And other examples of this about, for example, in the employment, and think about job interviews, and very often you'll have interpreters there in these instances, and the interpreter will be there, and a deaf person will be signing in the interview, and there'll be an interpreter, a hearing person who's expressing in voice what the deaf person is signing. And so the hearing people hearing that hear that conveyed.
Like right now, I'm actually I've been signing this whole time, and I'm very curious for hearing people what your experience is. All of this sudden, my voice is now shifted to me. So, who did you think I was prior to my signing now? Do I have a different relationship with you? Are you able to access my identity? Who am I now that I'm speaking? My presence is here. I'm actually communicating with you. But often you've probably been looking at a deaf person signing and superimposing the interpreter's voice over the deaf person signing. So this is a critical point, because what can you actually trust of that deaf person if you do not see and do not receive their own voice?
So now I'm going to go back to signing and speak to that juxtaposition of identities that are in the room. And I want to suggest that it's critical that we as hearing people do our very best to get direct sense of identity and voice and connection with deaf people, regardless of whether they're using their voice or not. I have voice at this moment in sign. Everybody does. Their voices are expressed as eloquently, as perfectly, nothing ambiguous about it. That is voice. And so this notion of phonocentrism is critical to keeping the supremacy of speech, but sign is in fact every bit its equal. And so the ability to express in 3 dimensions with incredible depth is present in sign. So we have to try to open our minds and hearts to the capacity to receive deaf people's wisdom, their intelligence, their contributions directly from them, and not attribute that to the voice you're hearing, to be able to focus on the person you are actually conversing with and get the connection with that person. The advantages of this are many. Throughout my career, I have gained so much from my associations with deaf people and their wisdoms and community, and this offers to you the concept, and I offer the concept today, that hearing loss is in fact not true, it's deaf gain, because there is also another sense of hearing loss as a person who hears, because hearing people are losing out. They're losing out on opportunities to interact genuinely with deaf people. They're losing out on the opportunities to embed their children in a lifetime of bilingualism and sign. They're losing out on the opportunity to truly interact with deaf people and to have a deaf supervisor bring their unique lens to their career advancement. It has been a gift to me that I am eternally grateful for. These 30 years in deaf studies and deaf studies department here, been here since 1999, and so 25 years that I've been in the department now. I'm profoundly thankful for that. And I'd like to see a future where phonocentrism is no more, and nothing reigns supreme. Communication and protactile and sign language and voice, all is seen equally important, and every form of communication is valid, and there is no longer a hierarchy of modalities of communication, that we all see the worth of communicating and connecting directly with one another. Thank you. Thank you.